We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Hello and welcome to another episode of Veterans to Success, the podcast that talks to ordinary people about extraordinary acts. And today, on the 6th of June 2024, is a poignant day indeed for me and for many of us throughout the UK and beyond. Why? Because the 6th of June 2024 marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which represents a day of tremendous bravery, selflessness, and heroism from the members of the Allied forces. We shall fight them on the beaches was a speech delivered by the British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, to the House of Commons on the Parliament of the United Kingdom on 4th of June 1940, which could be considered as a build-up and preparation to D-Day. This was the second of three major speeches given around that period of the Battle of France. The others are the Blood, Toil, Tears and Sweat speech of 13th of May 1940, and This Was the Finest Hour speech of 18th of June 1940. Events developed dramatically over the 5-week period, and although broadly similar in themes, each speech addressed a different military and diplomatic context. In his speech, Churchill's aim was to counter the jubilant public reaction provoked by the evacuation from Dunkirk and bring the discussion back to reality. Churchill repeats the word fight over and over again to make sure that the British and those listening to secret radios all over the world know that the British will never surrender, as he says further on in his speech. Our gratitude to our splendid allies goes forth from all our hearts in this island and throughout the British Empire. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing, but let us not forget for a moment the toil and efforts that lie ahead. Churchill's delivery had to be faultless to get his ideas across, but public speaking wasn't something that had come naturally to him. He had had to work hard over the years to overcome a slight speech impediment. He couldn't say the letter S very well. He had a bit of a lisp, and he did this by control. During the time before D-Day, there were many more setbacks, and in 1941, Churchill had to describe a great military disaster and warn of a possible invasion attempt by Nazi Germany, without casting doubt on eventual victory. He also had to prepare his domestic audience for France's falling out of the war without in any way releasing France to do so, and wished to reiterate a policy and aim unchanged, despite the intervening events from his speech of 13th of May, in which he had declared the goal of victory, however long and hard the road may be. Moving forward in time, Field Marshal Montgomery and General Eisenhower both had access to much the same military information, but of course viewed it from different perspectives and prejudices. While this may have caused some irritation to them both at times, they must have learned to cope with the irritation because General Eisenhower valued Montgomery's opinions and analysis because he was highly perceptive even, and his military insights and judgments were sound and well thought through. Their planning led to D-Day, which was a pivotal point for the Allied forces winning the war. It is to this day the largest seaborne invasion in history, and was a perfect delivery to the German forces of misinformation, deception, and outstanding bravery. On the build-up to the battle, inflatable tanks were positioned as decoys, which made the Germans think the Allies had more tanks than they actually did, and helped mask the final preparations were being made for the invasion. Ruperts, as they were fondly known, were also used. Rupert was a dummy in the shape of a paratrooper, which jettisoned out of an aircraft, giving the Germans the impression paratroopers were attacking them, only to find later that they were not real. It was just dummies that had parachutes on. These deception techniques used in preparation for D-Day had previously been used and tested in North Africa in 1941-42 and prior to the landings in Italy in 1943. Along the coast, the beaches were codenamed by names they are still known as today: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Stretching from the Carentan estuary to the Ouistreham, the beaches were the site of the largest seaborne invasion in world history, as already mentioned. The actual invasion had been planned for the morning of the 5th of June, and in true British form, the weather forecast was dismal. Group Captain James Martin Stagg, CBE, OBE, and FRSE, was a British Met officer meteorologist attached to the Royal Air Force during the Second World War, who notably persuaded General Dwight D. Eisenhower to change the date of the Allied invasion of Europe from the 5th of June to the 6th of June 1944. So on the night of the 5th of June 1944, a force of 181 men, commanded by Major John Howard, took off from Tarrant Rushden in Dorset in 6 Horsa gliders towed by 6 Halifax bombers. This was the airborne assault on Pegasus Bridge over the Caen Canal and the second bridge over the River Orme. This attack was named Operation Dead Stick, officially named Operation Coup de Main, and the unit was D Company, 2nd Airborne Battalion, the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Regiment. This strategic takeover of the bridge was launched so the bridge could provide an effective exit route from the beaches for Allied forces and prevent a German counterattack. The gliders reached their target shortly after midnight, and having taken the Germans completely by surprise, after only 10 minutes of fighting, Pegasus Bridge was captured. Beyond the bridge is the Café Gondry, which is a red brick building which still stands today, and I have actually visited. This was the first home liberated by the Allied forces on D-Day itself. Just 90 minutes after taking off from the UK, Major Howard was able to issue the code name Ham and Jam, signalling both bridges had been secured intact. The original bridge is now stored in the Pegasus Memorial Museum, which is just a few hundred meters away from the original site and can be visited to this day. In this first action, the first British soldier was sadly lost due to enemy fire. A Lieutenant Herbert Den Brotheridge was shot as he led the charge bravely across the Pegasus Bridge. Once captured, the bridge was then to be held until relieved by the commandos and other infantry advancing from Sword Beach. The citation published in the London Gazette for another incident that occurred later that day is as follows. In Normandy on the 6th of June 1944, during the assault on the beaches and the Mont Fleury battery, CSM Hollis Company commanded notice that 2 of the pillboxes had been bypassed and went with the CSM Hollis to see they were clear. When they were 20 yards from the pillbox, a machine gun opened fire from the slit, and CSM Hollis instantly rushed straight at the pillbox, firing his Sten gun. He jumped on top of the pillbox, recharged his magazine, threw a grenade in through the door and fired his Sten gun into it, killing 2 Germans and making the remainder prisoner. He then cleared several Germans from a neighbouring trench. By his action, he undoubtedly saved his company from being fired on heavily from the rear and enabled them to open the main beach exit. Later the same day, in the village of Crepon, the company encountered a field gun and crew armed with Spandus at 100 yards range. CSM Hollis was put in command of a party to cover an attack on the gun, but the movement was held up. Seeing this, CSM Hollis pushed right forward to engage the gun with a Piat from a house at 50 yards range. He was observed by a sniper who fired and grazed his right cheek, and at the same moment, the gun swung round and fired at point-blank range into the house. To avoid the fallen masonry, CSM Hollis moved his party to an alternative position. 2 of the enemy gun crew had by this time been killed, and the gun was destroyed shortly afterwards. He later found that 2 of his men had stayed behind in the house and immediately volunteered to get them out. In full view of the enemy, who were continually firing at him, he went forward alone using a Bren gun to distract their attention from the other men. Under cover of his diversion, the 2 men were able to get back. Wherever fighting was heaviest, CSM Hollis appeared, and in due course of a magnificent day's work, he displayed the utmost gallantry, and on 2 separate occasions, his courage and initiative prevented the enemy from holding up the advance at critical stages. It was largely through his heroism and resource that the company's objectives were gained and casualties were not heavier. And by his own bravery, he saved the lives of many of his men. For this, CSM Hollis was awarded the Victoria Cross. And I could list many other instances where bravery was shown, and the support given by ordinary civilian men and women who demonstrated and executed extraordinary acts are too many to mention. In fact, when I was doing the research for this episode, it was just amazing how many acts of bravery I could mention. What I would like to do now is to inform you of 10 things you might not know about D-Day. Some of them I've already mentioned, but I'll go through them anyway. Number 1, it doesn't stand for what you think. The term D-Day is used by the armed forces to refer to the beginning of an operation. The D stands for day, meaning it's actually short for D-Day, which is nowhere near as catchy. Before the Allied attack in June 1944, there would have been many D-Days. However, it was so iconic that it came to be used solely when referring to the beginning of Operation Overlord. Number 2, Britain was not alone. In addition to those from the UK, D-Day forces included sailors, soldiers, and airmen from the USA, Canada, Australia, Belgium, Czechoslovakia, France, Greece, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, and the Commonwealth. Number 3, even the Allied forces couldn't beat the weather, which I've already touched on, actually. The D-Day invasion was actually planned for the 5th of June, and in true British fashion, the weather was too bad. Number 4, Hitler had been preparing. Yes, indeed, he had been preparing for an attack. The D-Day landings weren't a simple matter of invading a series of beaches. They involved breaching Hitler's Atlantic Wall, a series of impenetrable defences stretching 1,670 miles from Norway to Spain. And much of this wall is still intact. Concrete turret defences, anti-landing obstacles, and more can still be found all across the coast. Number 5, it wasn't the easiest option on the table. The Axis actually considered Normandy to be one of the least likely places for the Allies to attack. It had been the furthest crossing distance from the UK and no port. This is precisely why they chose to invade there. They invented and constructed 2 artificial harbours to solve the port problem and transported 7,000 tons of vehicles and goods over them each day. 6, equipment had to be specially invented. Yes, that's right. As the invasion was the first of its kind, there was no existing equipment with which to carry it out. Not only were the Mulberry harbours invented, so were the iconic landing crafts. These had a ramp that dropped down into the sea, meaning troops didn't have to scramble over the side to get them out. Known as LCTs, landing craft tanks. Number 7, the south of England was transformed. The jump-off point for the attack was the south coast of England, and the bottom half of the country was transformed into one large army camp in preparation. Civilian and diplomatic travel was restricted, and journalists were constantly monitored. Number 8, leading on from that, was fake news played a big role. And you'll remember I said about fake actions like inflatable tanks and Ruperts dropped out the sky with parachutes. Well, it was also impossible to hide the coming attack from the German intelligence totally. The Allies therefore ran operations to confuse them on when and where it would take place. They leaked fake plans, set up fake camps, and sent fake coded radio messages. On the morning of the 6th of June, the Allied forces bombed Calais to give the illusion they were readying for an attack. The French resistance then cut telephone lines to stop news of the invasion reaching the German high command. German intelligence wasn't sure whether the attack was even real as it was taking place. Number 9, landing wasn't the first step. The first part of the invasion was conducted by air. British and American airborne divisions landed behind enemy lines, as I mentioned earlier, capturing the Caen Canal Bridge, later renamed Pegasus Bridge, to stop German reinforcements. Capturing the bridge was no small task, and reenactments now pay homage to the paratroopers on special commemorative occasions. Finally, at 10, the news reached Anne Frank in the annex. Listening on a secret radio, Anne Frank recounts there was great commotion in the secret annex upon their hearing about the attack. Hope is revived within us, she wrote. It gives us fresh courage and makes us strong again. Sadly, Anne's hiding place would be found by the Nazis before that liberation she dreamed of could take place. And bringing us back to today, right? I believe each of us has a hero's journey to live. And those that went before us sacrificed their all. And they did so we can live in a democracy, free to live our lives in a civil society. That said, sometimes life can seem like a battle or an uphill struggle, can't it? So I'd like to share with you my version of "We will fight them on the beaches," which is, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and business owners achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. And with that said, I want to leave you with 7 top tips on how you can use the same sort of misinformation, deception, and techniques to fool your mind when you're having a bad day, using the equivalent of inflatable tanks and Ruperts, and also fake news to help you succeed, because there's so much news out there that might not be happy. So I want you to make your own fake news. So number 1, the first of the 7, is start your day finished. Right, so just picture what you want your day to be like when it's finished. So start it with that in mind. Number two, once you've got that, always be your best self. Now, that doesn't mean to say, right, that you have to perform outstandingly every day. Being your best self means that when you're having a bad day, just take it a little bit further so you can be a little bit better and get a little bit better performance than you would have done if you'd not thought about it. So being your best self is not about performing every day at the same level. What it does mean is, though, you give 100% to it. So when you're having a bad day, your 100% may not be as good as your 100% when you're having a fantastic day. But the fact is, every day, just be your best self. Number three, stay away from the dream stealers. What do I mean by this? Well, guess what? There's lots of dream stealers out there. People who say you can't do something, or you don't do that, won't do that, you cannot do that possibly. Well, guess what? That might be their limiting belief stopping them from doing it. That does not mean to say that you can't do it. So never, ever, ever let anyone else's limiting beliefs become your limiting belief. Number four, be charitable. What do we mean by this? Well, help someone achieve something they could not have done without you being there. You know, if you see someone struggling carrying a heavy bag, just ask them, could you help them? Or maybe help an elderly person do some shopping or cross the road. Do something charitable. It doesn't mean to say you have to give money. You might not be in a position to give money all the time. What you can do is give some of your time. There's lots of charities out there that could do with you helping a little bit. And guess what? It'll keep you out of trouble as well, because it'll give you something to occupy your mind. Number five, this is a big one for me, actually. When you see someone without a smile, right? So when you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. What does a smile cost? In fact, it's good for your face because you use less muscles in your face when you smile than you do when you frown. So when you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours, because I bet you if you do it enough times, then the smile will become natural and people will smile back. Because that's what people do. We're social. We like to help each other. We like to help each other be happy. And if you just happen to smile at a grumpy person and they don't smile back, well, yeah, do not let their problem become your problem. Just keep smiling. Number six, this is a biggie, because with this you can really do lots of great things. Without it, maybe not so. So number six is set just one goal each day that you want to achieve and make it achievable as well, right? So as you find that you set one goal each day and you achieve it, you'll get in the habit of setting goals and achieving it. So you'll want to do more. It could be just go for a walk for 20 minutes. Or it could be spend some quality time with a friend. If you can't meet them face to face, you might want to give them a phone call or do something that doesn't take an awful lot. You don't need to be loaded. You don't need lots of money to do set goals. You just need to have a mission to make your life a little bit better. And finally, with this one, I tell you what, this is a great one, because with this, you can really make sure that you're just getting better and better each day. And without it, you don't have as much direction, because this next point is at the end of each day, right? At the end of each day, write down 5 things that you did not have time to do, perhaps, or you couldn't do it because there wasn't enough time or resources or money or the people weren't there. Write down 5 things that you didn't do, and then make them the first things you do the next day before anything else clutters your day. And of course, I appreciate that you might have work to go to, or you might have pressing things. Just do those 5 things. Have them in the back of your mind and just keep ticking them off. You get in that habit, right? And you do that for 30 days or more, that will totally change your mind. And finally, to find out more about how to develop fantastic success strategies, formidable planning techniques, and fabulous empowering systems, visit joeteams.com, where there's loads of information about the resources you can get access to. And you know, I'd just like to finish with saying that 21 veterans went out to visit the beaches, and the last of the veterans from Dunkirk, many of them are aged over 100. I would personally like to say thank you very much for your service, and thank you for those that laid down their lives and were prepared to lay down their lives so we could live in a democracy. And until the next time we meet and the next episode of Veterans for Success, I wish you an absolutely brilliant day. Thank you.